welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nauri. In today's bulletin, we will get you detailed news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Student debt forgiveness causes monthly deficit to jump 562%. US says Iranian troops in Crimea backing Russian drone strikes. Biden stumps for PS, Fetterman says world is looking. Oprah seeks to lend her appeal to Abrams in Georgia election. Pentagon to provide funds help for troops seeking abortions. Funeral for two ambushed officers draws fears from around US. Renowned pianist Fats Domino has a street renamed in his honor. Elon Musk plans to cut 75% of Twitter workforce. Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, top contenders for UK PM. Pakistan's Election Commission bars ex-PM Khan from office. UN demands end to violence in Haiti, sanctions gang leader. Ukrainian forces pile pressure on Russian-held Kherson. EU slaps sanctions on Iran drone maker military officers. Chad government suspends 7 political parties after deadly protests. Stephen Curry launches graphic novel series on sports stars. NCAA on trial in concussion case of dead USC football player. And 49ers acquire RB Christian McCaffrey from Panthers. Now news in detail. The Treasury Department said Friday that the federal budget deficit was 562% higher on a monthly basis compared with September 2021, largely reflecting President Joe Biden's plans to forgive student debt. Despite the monthly increase over the fiscal year that ended last month, the federal budget deficit fell 1.4 trillion. It roughly halved in size because of the end of spending tied to coronavirus pandemic relief and higher tax revenues as more Americans found jobs. The federal budget deficit totaled 1.38 trillion this year. That's down from 2.78 trillion in fiscal 2021. Biden spoke about the figures on Friday as a sign that he has been responsible with federal finances. Still, the federal deficit jumped in the final fiscal year month of September because of the Democratic president's plans to forgive student debt as the Education Department modified the terms of its loans for college and graduate school. Biden in August announced $10,000 in federal student debt cancellation for those with incomes below $125,000 a year or households that make less than $250,000 a year. Those who received federal Pell Grants to attend college are eligible for an additional $10,000 in forgiveness. Biden's plan makes 20 million people eligible to get their federal student debt erased entirely. The White House said Thursday that Iranian troops are directly engaged on the ground in Crimea supporting Russian drone attacks on Ukraine's power stations and other key infrastructure, claiming it has troubling evidence of Tehran's deepening role assisting Russia as it exacts suffering on Ukrainian civilians just as the cold weather sets in. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told reporters that Iran has sent a relatively small number of personnel to Crimea, a part of Ukraine unilaterally annexed by Russia in contravention of international law in 2014, to assist Russian troops in launching Iranian-made drones against Ukraine. Members of a branch of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps were dispatched to assist Russian forces in using the drones, according to the British government. The revelation of the US intelligence finding comes as the Biden administration seeks to mount international pressure on Tehran to pull back from helping Russia as it bombards soft Ukrainian civilian targets with the help of Iranian-made drones. The Russians in recent days have increasingly turned to the Iranian-supplied drones, as well as Kalib and Iskander cruise missiles, to carry out a barrage of attacks against Ukrainian infrastructure and non-military targets. President Vladimir Zelensky said this week that Russian forces have destroyed 30% of Ukraine's power stations since October 10. President Joe Biden said Thursday that the rest of the world is looking to see who holds control of Congress after the upcoming midterm elections, warning that Republican victories would jeopardize the nation's standing abroad as tried to deliver a boost to Pennsylvania Democrat John Fetterman's campaign for the Senate. Speaking at a fundraiser in Philadelphia, Biden sounded the alarm about what he viewed as the urgency of the moment, saying Republicans are trying to roll back access to abortion and raise the price of prescription drugs. He seized on comments by some GOP lawmakers, including House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, casting doubt on the US commitment to help Ukraine fend off Russia's invasion of its territory. They said that if they win, they are not likely to continue to fund Ukraine. Biden said, "These guys don't get it. It's a lot bigger than Ukraine. It's Eastern Europe. It's NATO. It's really serious, consequential outcomes." He added, "The rest of the world is looking at this election as well. Both the good guys and the bad guys out there to see what's going to happen. We have got to win. John's got to win." Biden's comments came at the conclusion of a day-long visit to the state, where a Democratic victory would strongly improve the party's chances of holding onto the Senate. Fetterman is facing Dr. Mehmet Oz, a Republican, for an open seat being vacated by Senator Pat Toomey, also a Republican. Oprah Winfrey is again shining her star power on Democrat Stacey Abrams' bid for governor in Georgia, as Abrams pursues a rematch against incumbent Republican Brian Kemp, who she narrowly lost to in 2018. Winfrey appeared in a pre-recorded chat with Abrams on a campaign website Thursday, saying she believes the candidate has a calling to want people to be able to do better, to live better, and to thrive in their lives. "I'm wishing that the people of Georgia come out and make that a reality for you and the state of Georgia," Winfrey said. The appearance comes during the first of 3 weeks of early voting in Georgia, as Democrats in particular seek to drive their voters to cast ballots early. More than 434,000 people had already voted as of Thursday morning. Winfrey visited Georgia in November 2018 to campaign for Abrams in her previous unsuccessful bid, even knocking on some doors in suburban Atlanta. Since then, Abrams has vaulted to her own national fame as a voting rights activist and Democratic leader, earning millions from books and speeches. The Pentagon will provide travel funds and support for troops and their dependents who seek abortions but are based in states where they are now illegal, according to a new department policy released Thursday. The military will also increase privacy protections for those seeking care. The order issued by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin outlines the rights and protection service members and their dependents will have regardless of where they are based, which was a key concern of troops after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in June. access to abortion has become a central issue in the midterm elections. President Joe Biden promised this week that the first bill he sends to Capitol Hill next year will be one that writes abortion protections into law, if Democrats control enough seats in Congress to pass it. And he said in a forum with Now This News that he would support a federal fund to reimburse some costs for those who have to travel for the procedure. Thousands of police officers from around the country gathered in a football stadium in Connecticut on Friday for a joint funeral for two officers who were shot to death in an apparent ambush. The service for Bristol officers Dustin DeMonte and Alex Hamzy was set to be held at Pratt and Whitney Stadium at Rentschler Field, the University of Connecticut's 40,000-seat stadium in East Hartford. Major highway closures were announced for the processions of the two officers from funeral homes to the stadium. DeMonte, Hamzy and Officer Alec Urato were shot on October 12 in what police believe was an ambush set up by a 911 call made by the shooter, Nicholas Brucher. Urato, who survived a gunshot wound to his leg, struggled to get behind a police cruiser and fired a single shot that killed Brucher. Brucher's brother Nathan also was shot and survived. At the time of the shooting, DeMonte was a sergeant with 10 years experience on the force and Hamzy was an officer for 8 years. They were promoted posthumously to lieutenant and sergeant, respectively. Mourners, including many police officers from New England and beyond, streamed into the stadium hours before the service. The New Orleans street where one of the founders of rock and roll spent most of his life is being renamed in his honor. A community-wide second line and musical celebration begins at 11 a.m. Saturday at the longtime home of Antoine Fats Domino on Caffeine Avenue, which will now be known as Antoine Fats Domino Avenue. Led by the Stooges Brass Band, the second line will proceed down the renamed street to Oliver Bush Park, where musical tributes to Domino will occur. Domino sold more than 110 million records, with hits including Blueberry Hill, Ain't That a Shame, originally titled Ain't It a Shame, and other standards of rock and roll. Elon Musk plans to lay off most of Twitter's workforce if and when he becomes owner of the social media company, according to a report Thursday by the Washington Post. Musk has told prospective investors in his Twitter purchase that he plans to cut nearly 75% of Twitter's employee base of 7,500 workers, leaving the company with a skeleton crew, according to the report. The newspaper cited documents and unnamed sources familiar with the deliberations. San Francisco-based Twitter and representative for Musk, attorney Alex Spiro, did not immediately respond to messages seeking comment. While job cuts have been expected regardless of the sale, the magnitude of Musk's planned cuts are far more extreme than anything Twitter had planned. Musk himself has alluded to the need to call some of the company's staff in the past, but he hadn't given a specific number, at least not publicly. Already experts, non-profits, and even Twitter's own staff have warned that pulling back investments on content moderation and data security could hurt Twitter and its users. With as drastic a reduction as Musk may be planning, the platform could quickly become overrun with harmful content and spam, the latter of which the Tesla CEO himself has said he will address if he becomes owner of the company. Now it's time for global updates. Boris Johnson and his former finance minister Rishi Sunak were leading potential contenders to replace British Prime Minister Liz Truss on Friday, with candidates canvassing support to become Conservative Party leader in a fast-tracked contest. Truss, chosen by party members to succeed Johnson after he was ousted by his lawmakers in July, quit herself on Thursday after 6 turbulent weeks in power. Those who want to replace her must secure 100 nominations from conservative lawmakers by Monday to run in a contest which the party hopes will reset its ailing fortunes, with opinion polls suggesting the Conservatives would be all but wiped out if a national election were held now. The race is on to become the fifth British Premier in 6 years. An election is not due to be held for 2 years. The winner will be announced on Monday or next Friday. Pakistan's Elections Commission on Friday disqualified former Prime Minister Imran Khan from holding public office for 5 years, accusing him of unlawfully selling state gifts and concealing assets, his spokesman and officials said. The move is likely to deepen lingering political turmoil in the impoverished country. Fawad Chaudhary told reporters that the Election Commission of Pakistan announced the much-awaited verdict in the capital, Islamabad. Chaudhary condemned the move and urged Khan's supporters to protest publicly. Officials and legal experts said Khan will lose his National Assembly seat under the verdict. Balkh Ser Khosa, a prominent lawyer, said the commission disqualified Khan from holding public office because he unlawfully sold state gifts given to him by other countries when he was in power. He said Khan also hid the profits he earned from those sales from tax authorities. The latest decision comes months after the parliament ousted Khan through a no-confidence vote. Angered over Khan's disqualification, his Tehreek-e-Insaf party urged supporters to take to the streets to peacefully condemn the commission's decision, which Khan's party was expecting. Dozens of Khan's supporters were seen chanting slogans against the government and authorities of the Election Commission Friday. Hundreds of others blocked a key road in the northwestern city of Peshawar, disrupting traffic. Khan's supporters were also holding small rallies in major cities in the country. Khan's hundreds of supporters briefly clashed with police in the garrison city of Rawalpindi. However, the demonstrators dispersed when police swung batons and fired tear gas shells, according to local media reports. The government deployed additional security forces in Islamabad to maintain law and order. The UN Security Council unanimously adopted a resolution Friday demanding an immediate end to violence and criminal activity in Haiti and imposing sanctions on a powerful gang leader. The United States and Mexico, which drafted the 10-page resolution, delayed the vote from Wednesday so they could revise the text in hopes of gaining more support from Council members, and they succeeded in getting approval from all 15 nations. US Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield said immediately after the vote that the resolution was a first step to help the Haitian people and the second resolution was being prepared to help restore security to the crisis-racked Caribbean nation. The final text eliminated a reference to an October 7 appeal by Haiti's Council of Ministers for the urgent dispatch of an international military force to tackle the country's violence and alleviate its humanitarian crisis. Also dropped was mention of an October 8 letter from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres outlining options to help Haiti's national police combat high levels of gang violence. A second resolution, which was still being worked on late Thursday, would address the issue of combating Haiti's violence. It would authorize an international force to help improve security in the country if approved. Ukrainian forces continue to pile on the pressure on Russian positions in occupied Kherson Friday, targeting resupply routes across the Dnieper River as Kiev inched closer to a full-scale assault to retake the strategic southern port city. As many as 2,000 Russian draftees have poured into the Kherson region to replenish losses and strengthen units on the front line, according to Ukraine's Army General Staff. The Antonivsky Bridge, that is on a main route from Crimea to Russian-held territories in southern Ukraine, was struck late Thursday, said Natalia Humeniuk, a spokesperson for Ukraine's Southern Operational Command, but only after the 10 p.m. local curfew to avoid civilian casualties. "We do not attack civilians and settlements," Humenyuk told Ukrainian television after Kirill Stremosov, the Moscow-installed deputy chief of the regional administration, claimed that at least 4 civilians were killed as a result of Ukrainian strikes. Stremosov said that attack occurred some 40 minutes after the curfews started. A further 13 people suffered wounds, Kherson's top health official Vadim Ilmiev said. Among the dead and wounded were journalists from the Russia-created TV channel Tambria, according to Stremosov. The European Union on Thursday imposed sanctions on Shahid Aviation Industries in Iran and 3 Iranian armed forces generals for undermining Ukraine's territorial integrity by helping to supply drones to Russia to use in the war against its neighbor. Ukraine's Western reinforced air defenses are making it difficult for Russian warplanes to operate, and killer drones are a cheap weapon that can seek out and destroy targets while spreading fear among troops and civilians. Russia is accused of sending waves of Iranian-made Shahid drones over Ukraine to strike power plants and other key infrastructure. In response, the EU imposed an asset freeze on the company, as well as an asset freeze and travel ban on the 3 officers, who are also suspected of links to Iran's drone program. EU headquarters said in a statement that the move is a signal of the EU's resolve to respond swiftly and decisively to Iran's actions supporting Russian aggression against Ukraine. The EU condemns the delivery of Iranian drones to Russia and their deadly deployment in the war of aggression against Ukraine. Iran on Thursday denied as baseless accusations it was sending missiles and drones to Russia for Russian forces to use in the invasion of Ukraine. Chad's government clamped down on the country's opposition Friday, suspending 7 political parties and searching party offices a day after unprecedented protests around the country left more than 60 people dead. Prominent opposition leader Success Master tweeted that the national headquarters of his Les Transformations party was being ransacked by security forces who forced their way in. After having shot 70 people, arrested, wounded, and tortured more than 1,000 others, they are now attacking buildings and documents, he tweeted. Master's party was listed first among the 7 suspended by Chad's government for a 3-month period. The decree covers all political activities nationwide. Demonstrators in the capital, N'Djamena, and several other cities took to the streets Thursday to protest against interim leader Mohammad Idris Deby extending his time in power by 2 more years. Deby became head of a transitional government when his father, former President Idris Deby Itno, died in April 2021 after more than 30 years in power. Mohammad Idris Deby initially agreed to an 18-month transition, a term that would have ended Thursday. Now a look of today's sports stories. Stephen Curry's latest move is one for the books. The NBA superstar is launching a graphic novel series, Stephen Curry Presents Sports Superheroes, in partnership with Penguin Workshop. The first of 4 planned installments will focus on Curry's career and is scheduled for fall 2024. The series will be created through the publishing arm of Unanimous Media, the company founded by Curry and Eric Payton. Last month, Penguin released Curry's picture book, I Have a Superpower. The new series will be written by Rich Carson and John Bissell, with illustrations by Damian Scott. The widow of a former University of Southern California football player suing the NCAA for failing to protect her husband from repetitive head trauma is taking what could be a landmark case to a Los Angeles jury Friday. Matthew Gee died in 2018 from permanent brain damage caused by countless blows to the head he took while playing linebacker for the 1990 Rose Bowl winning team, according to the wrongful death suit filed by Elena Gee. Of the hundreds of wrongful death and personal injury lawsuits brought by college football players against the NCAA in the past decade, Gies is only the second to go to trial, alleging that hits to the head led to chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a degenerative brain disease. It could be the first to reach a jury. For years has kept players like Matthew Gee and the public in the dark about an epidemic that was slowly killing college athletes, the lawsuit said. Long after they played their last game, they are left with a series of neurological conditions that could slowly strangle their brains. The NCAA, the governing body of college athletics in the US, said it wasn't responsible for Gee's death, which it blamed on heavy drinking, drugs, and other health problems. The San Francisco 49ers have acquired star running back Christian McCaffrey from the Carolina Panthers for a haul of draft picks. The Panthers on Thursday night announced the deal that sends McCaffrey back to the Bay Area where he starred in college at Stanford. They said it will be finalized when McCaffrey passes a physical. The Panthers will receive picks in the second, third, and fourth rounders of the 2023 draft, as well as a fifth rounder in 2024, according to a person familiar with the terms. The person spoke on condition of anonymity because the terms were not announced. Carolina had been seeking a first-round pick, but San Francisco had already dealt its 2023 first-round pick in a deal to draft Trey Lance last year. Let's have a look on today's weather chart. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest updates. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV, and also in all European countries and Australia, available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jadoo TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.